Today is a special day for me, so I'm going to review what I consider to be one of the 5 greatest films ever made. I don't know where to start when praising The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. The film is as close to flawless as you can get. When I first saw this movie, I was 13. I had never seen a Clint Eastwood film or a Sergio Leone film before then. But that was soon to change. From the beginning of this film, you know it's a classic. The raw howls on the main theme, as well as the terrific build-up, results in one of the best pieces of music that Ennio Morricone has ever produced, and that's saying a lot. The movie is every level of legendary. People make it their business to see this film so many times just to catch every little detail hidden in the background. This film just gets better with every new viewing, and it never fails to stir our emotions as we're rooting for those classic characters of this film. The film takes place in the Old West during the Civil War. 3 different men are making a living by their own principles and codes. We get the good, the bad, and the ugly. Clint Eastwood's back for the 3rd time as the man with no name. Lee Van Cleef is fresh from For a Few Dollars More, except now he's the bad guy, and Eli Wallach is brought in as Tuco, the bandit. All 3 of these characters have become so famous in our pop culture that it's silly to even talk about them without saying how awesome they are. The man with no name has become almost a caricature in recent years, as countless rip-offs and spoofs have been made about him. Clint Eastwood at this point could play the role in his sleep. Everything about this character defines the phrase, less is more. We never know his name. Tuco just nicknames him Blondie for the movie. He never shows his cards to anyone, never trusting anyone. We just get to see him interact with other characters, and we're never quite sure what he's going to do. It should also be noted that this is the film that explains where he gets his famous poncho from. Angel Eyes, the Bad, is about as cruel and merciless as Lee Van Cleef has ever been. Van Cleef seems to have been born to play this role. Consider his first scene in the film. The scene plays out for 10 minutes without anyone saying anything, but nothing needs to be said. The build-up and the performances given result in the textbook definition of suspense and subtext. We see a man who knows he's going to die, while Angel Eyes knows the man will try to persuade him to do otherwise. It's this silent suspense with little dialogue that Sergio Leone was so damn good at during his entire directing career. And best of all, we get Tuco, one of the most brilliantly created characters in film history. It's almost unthinkable that Eli Wallach was around 50 when he did this role. The character is lively, energetic, and endearing. It doesn't matter what he's guilty of, we still love him. He has simple codes that he lives by, which means he's capable of doing almost anything. Eli Wallach's scenes are electrifying, and Ennio Morricone conveniently replicated the sound of a feral hyena to the soundtrack to represent Tuco. The 3 men all hear about a stash of gold coins hidden away in a cemetery, and all 3 want to get their hands on it. This storyline barely gets touched on for the first act, though, because the movie takes its time in developing the characters for us. When the hunt finally begins in full earnest, we're fully engaged, and we know exactly what's going on. The hunt for the gold takes many turns, and all 3 make alliances with each other only to break them later. This deadly game continues all the way up until it results in one of the greatest showdowns of all time. I could talk about almost any scene in this film and make statements on how brilliant they all are, but for me, one of my favorite scenes actually involves the alcoholic Union captain. The character is so funny in his interactions with Tuco and Blondie as he expresses his disgust with the war effort. He leads his troops in a stalemate against the Confederates over a single bridge that Blondie and Tuco need to cross. The captain drunkenly raves about how insignificant the bridge is, and yet how many lives it's costing. I love this character, and the payoff scene he's given is one of the best moments in the movie. But on to the really good part. The final showdown. It takes a long time, what with the 3 men converging onto the cemetery individually. Like most great Sergio Leone moments, the music really makes the scene. Ennio Morricone's music never gets old, and the 3 characters who have sacrificed so much to get here are now ready to finally get their hands on what they've been looking for. The result will doubtless surprise many people seeing it for the first time, but it's a classic ending to be sure. I could go on and on about this movie. I've seen it dozens of times and I'll never get tired of it. It's not just a legendary Western, it's a legendary movie. I've seen most of Sergio Leone's work, and his films have all redefined the genres they fit under. But Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is just that film that everybody thinks of when they remember this wonderful director. Truly one of the greatest movies ever made. See the film if you haven't already, and I wish you the most pleasant of viewings.